Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome back to our channel. In this video we are going to see how you can create recurring entries in QuickBooks Desktop. So if you want to join this full course or get the QuickBooks services, you can contact on this number. Alright, let's get started. Now, software main purpose is automation of your work. But sometimes there are some entries that you need to physically enter in the system. And obviously after that you can get automatic reports from the software. But sometimes there is equal amount of entry that is done every month consistently. So you want system to automate that as well. So how can we do that? That is called recurring entries, which is of same amount every single month. For example, rent. Rent is charged 100,000 every month. Because it is a repeated entry of same nature kind and same amount, it can be automated and entered by the system every single month automatically. So let me show you a brief example before we go ahead and enter that in the system. For example, on 1st of January 2020, we paid rent for the whole year at 100,000 per month. Means 100,000 per month is our rent, and we paid all the rent in advance for 12 months. So the total amount would be 1200,000. Now, according to the accounting rules, even if you have spent all the money and paid 12 months rent in advance, it is considered as an asset in kind and it will be dealt in current assets because you haven't yet consumed the benefit of all the rent. So at each month end, for example 31st January 2020, only that specific part of rent will be charged as an expense which you have consumed the benefit of. So from 1st of January till 31st January, we have taken the benefit of the premises just equal to 1 month of rent. So that means at this stage it was debit advance rent as an asset at 100,000, and credit was, for example, I paid it by UBL, or let's say Standard Chartered Bank. So debit would be 1200,000 because we have paid for 12 months in advance. So this is a current asset, and credit will be Standard Chartered Bank and the amount will be 1200,000. So after the end of 1 month, we have consumed the benefit of 1 month of rent. So only that part will be charged to expense and it will be reduced from the advance rent. If you remember, you have done the same entry in the Zan Traders assignment in the starting. You can just go to the previous lectures and see that as well. Anyways, rent expense will be 100,000, that is debit, and credit amount will be advance rent, that is also 100,000. But this is the entry we will charge every month, and every month it will be same entry, debit rent expense 100,000 and credit advance rent 100,000. Now for the recurring entries, or if you want system to automatically do the entries every month, just make sure that the amount and the ledgers remain the same every single month. For example, on 28 February 2020, entry will be same because now we have consumed the benefit for February and we will charge the February rent in the profit or loss and reduce it from the advance rent. So that is called recurring entries, which occurs every month, but it is exactly same. So we don't need to do it manually. Rather, we will automate that entries in the system. Now let's take the same scenario to QuickBooks. I'll go to accountant and go to make journal entries. You can go from accountant section or you can use the company area to go to make journal entries. And for 1st of January 2020, I will make an entry that is advance rent debit. Now, as soon as I press tab, it is asking you to create that account because we don't already have it. So just click setup and consider it as other current asset. And it shows the example that in other current assets section, you can write prepaid expenses. So this is a prepaid expense. I'll continue with it and save and close. Now total amount is 1200,000 and that is advance rent for 12 months. Let's copy that narration as well. Now press tab and go on the second line. And now let's create a Standard Chartered bank account. Press tab. We need to set up that as well. Bank, continue. Okay, now it's done. Now save and new. After that, on 31st January, we will make an entry like this: rent expense to advance rent. Setup, expense, continue, save and close. 100,000 is our expense amount, and just mention a common narration which can be used in every other transaction. That means don't mention the month. Just mention rent charged against the current month. And credit will be advance rent, that is 100,000. Now this is the entry that will be repeated in every single month. So we can automate that. Now let's make some changes, because as we already know that 31st January is the date that is specifically for the January. It will not be repeated in every month. For example, for February, there are 28 days. So we have to mention a date that can be repeated in every month and that is contained in every month. So either we have to put a date of 28 January so that it can be repeated in every month. Means we have 28 February, we have 28 March, or otherwise you can mention the date of 1st of every month, because our main objective is to make that expense a part of that specific month. So whether you mention 1st or 28 or 31st, it doesn't matter, it will be part of that month. So let's actually make it 28 January 2020. Now I have completed that transaction for January, but for all the future months, I want to automate this entry so that it can be automatically saved in the system, and the system will make the entry and then just ask you to post it every month. So after the completion of entry, I'll go to memorize, and in the memorize section, I'll write a name. And there are 3 options: add to my reminder list, do not remind, or automate transaction entry. I want to automate it. So after you tick automate, it will ask you how often do you want to repeat it. You can repeat it daily, weekly, twice a week, twice a month, or monthly. Since this is a monthly entry, I'll choose monthly, and it will ask you for the next date of execution. Now, if I already enter this January entry and I save it, so the next entry would be on 28th February 2020. And the number of months remaining after January is 11. That means the whole year. Just the January transaction we have already done, and remaining numbers are 11. After that, it asks you to enter the days in advance to enter. Means if you want the entry to be done before this date, means 2 days before this date, then you can mention that number as well. But we want entries to be made on exact same dates. So I'll just ignore it. Now let's press OK. And now save that entry as well. Save and close. Now until what point it will make the entries? Actually, it will consider your system date. Today is 14th April 2020. That means that completed months are February and March. April is not yet completed up to 28th. So that means it will automatically recommend the entries to be made for 2 months. Now it will not recommend you the entries while the company is still running. It will recommend you every time you start the company. So I'll just go to file and close the company, and then let's open it again. Okay. Now, as you can see that it shows a pop-up that you can enter the memorized transaction, and it says you have 11 memorized transaction to be entered now. But I told you that it will recommend you only 2 entries, that is for February and for March. But it is recommending the entries up to December. That's because this is a sample company and it already had some data up to year 2022. So that's why it is considering that maybe the current reporting date in the software is set to 2022. So according to that, all the entries needs to be entered. But if you are working practically in a company, then obviously it will recommend according to the dates. So that means for just for February and March if it is April. So anyways, it mentioned the date 28 February and 28 March 2022. So you can choose whatever entries you want to make. Since it checks all, if I enter check now, it will enter all the transactions. I don't want to enter all of them. So I'll just click it once to disable that and then check 2 of the entries manually. And finally, I can enter check now. So all the memorized transactions that is draft transactions are now permanently entered in the system. Press OK. And now let's check it. Go to accountant, make journal entries. Go to last records and see the entries are made up to 2022 because this is a sample company. So we actually have to manually find the transactions. Let's say from 1st of January, I'll go to new one and then go to find, then mention the dates manually. 1st of January 2020 to 31st December 2020 and check find. Now here you can find these entries. Let's say this one. This is March, go to previous, this is February, and go to previous, this is January. So as you can see that it made the entry for all the dates. So that's how you can make automated transaction entries by memorizing the same entry every month. And that can be used not just for rent, but for a particular fees. For example, you have to pay an auditor's fees every month or any kind of certain charges that you want to automate. Company has many transactions like that. So you can just enter it in the memorize section and it will automatically recommend you. That really lifts up your workload and make it very easy for you to manage and close the month end. So that's it. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so that you can get notified of all the future videos. This is Saad signing off from today's video. Take care.